Dude, 20 years since we made Hero. Can you believe that?
I know.
Do
It's
you,
it
do you
makes
still
you feel
you
pretty
still do
old.
any of those songs?
We still do I still do Six String Rocketeer
Of
and
course.
3,000 Miles Away.
Right.
Those are the two. Yeah. It is funny though, because you go back, we were talking about it in the reunion thing that we did last week. And then offline, we were talking about it because people are like, oh, why don't you guys go back? You should do those songs live or whatever. And we were all talking. And since, just it's been 20 years and so much has changed and we've grown and, whatever. We're like, I mean, even me, I'm like, I'm not even sure I believe all those songs anymore. Like,
Hey, that's a thing, isn't it?
I know.
That is a real
I
thing.
mean, even,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
Well, as a writer, you sometimes you get 20, 30 years past a song and you go, yeah, I don't really believe that like that anymore.
Yeah.
That's a real thing.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to be like, I believe that then, and that still feels true,
Right.
But I think it's disingenuous to sing it now,
Right.
as a like that doesn't ring true to me anymore. I don't feel like I mean specifically like
Which songs don't ring true to you? You got any?
yeah, I would say like the like Hero, the title track actually, I mean that's actually one of my favorite tracks musically.
Yeah.
But what's funny is it's like kind of this idea of like, it was like a composite character, but of just like different people, musicians that I had looked up to that were just sort of like kind of reckless in their lifestyle or, seemed like they were just sort of living rock and roll and they didn't care, like that they were role models or whatever. And now I look at it and I'm just like, man, that feels pretty judgmental. That song
Yeah.
does, just like, and also you just realize I don't know, you get to a certain age and you just realize like, oh man, it's just a cry for help, or oh, these poor people, or
They
like
were just
that's
addicts.
somebody's baby. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are just narcissistic addicts who needed help.
The people I looked up to my whole life were just addicts. Yeah, that is an actual that's a real realization. If
Yeah,
you do this, I'll tell you, there's a there's a thing about being in this business for a long period of time. And you come to these realizations. It's like you walk through these corridors you can't walk back through. And that's one of them is kind of meeting people that you kind of looked up to and realizing, man, that's a real screwed up archetype,
yeah,
and there and half of that was like a mistake and they just kind of caught a wave at a moment in time and they don't
yeah,
have any more answers than I've got.
yeah, absolutely.
And that can, if you build your thing on that, if you build your life and your kind of ethos, your kind of personal ethos on that that can kind of wreck you.
Yeah.
Has that any of that kind of stuff, happened in your life? I mean, have you what you've been through an odyssey over the last 20 years since Hero. I mean,
Yeah.
since I first met you, now you've got this record out, all the gold I've struck, and it's definitely, I mean, as a songwriter, I listen to it, and this is definitely a grown-up writing songs, you know.
Yeah.
Um, not that you were like, not that you were juvenile in the here. I mean, I loved those songs too, but I can tell you've been through some stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you like
Yeah.
that songwriter better? I have theories on this because I'm the same kind of songwriter. It's like there are songs that I wrote when I was 30 I wouldn't even think about writing now. And
Yeah.
but there was a like a fire or something that I had then that I would like to have now, but not at the expense of not of that ignorance. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was, I think we talked about this a little bit on that reunion call, but like I do miss that writer, that version of me as a writer and even as an artist because I didn't know the rules back then. I
Yeah.
just knew what I liked.
Right.
And and it turned out that what I liked is not what sells. And so that was problematic. So, I and then, you learn the rules. You learn the rules of what sells. You learn the rules really quickly of like that. Even the way that we would do shows, I think we always kind of had a little bit of a chip on our shoulders, sort of rock and roll way of this sort of like, especially in the CCM market, we're just kind of like, we're not just like we're basically not like traveling youth pastors, who are
Right.
going to come and do, like we got something more interesting to say or whatever, and then
Right.
after about, I don't know, 12 months of that maybe or something like that, and probably even less, when we realized like these people are signing the check. So how did so you would like us to do an altar call at the end? You got it, like it's like so it's like but I do miss that, like it was, sort of that blissful ignorance of just like, yeah man, let's do this, what if we did this, and let's speed up the song here and then we'll slow it down here, and
Yeah.
then and it's like we didn't know radio would play that, we didn't know,
Right.
um but I will say that I really enjoy writing songs now because um it's on the opposite end of the spectrum where I don't feel like I have anything to prove to anybody, as far as like, not because I feel like, oh, I've done it all, I've made it, I've checked all the boxes. It's more like I don't really care anymore, like I'm proud of what this is and I'm really happy with the way that it turned out. And if it resonates with people, like that's such a bonus,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree. I've gotten to this place in my artistry, my whatever it is I do, um, where yeah, the process of someone else liking it, where I think when you get in the music business, that's kind of everything, is that you hope that everybody, you want to sell to the masses, and you want to have hits, and hits mean certain things. It's got to resonate with a lot of people, and there are certain tricks that make that happen. And so you write that. At
Yeah.
this point in my life, someone else liking something is kind of like, oh, that's cool. That's like a nice little tip at the end of it. Otherwise, I really couldn't care less whether they do or not, because it really is. I feel this is the same way for you, and I think Six String Rocketeer is a great example of that. But for me, it really is about kind of tending to the wound, and helping my soul. I
Yeah.
really did. 2019, 2020, I really kind of came to that real, because I really wanted to just get out of all of it. I just didn't care anymore. But then kept getting all these songs, and I was like, no, oh, I get it. This is for me.
Hmm.
This is a gift, that this is what's going to help me keep from going insane.
Yeah.
And I've couched it in all this other stuff. You know what I mean? It's become an industry, and it's become my living, and it's become what my identity and all that. That's something else. The music part is something for my soul. Do you feel that way? I mean, it seems like you do. And I don't know. When I listen to some of the new stuff you're writing, it feels like you're kind of tapped into that same kind of orientation.
Yeah, I would say that, especially that the all the gold I struck album, I think a lot of those songs I've sort of wrote over about a 10-year span, so it wasn't just like I said, like I would normally sit down and kind of like over a few months write an album. This was like so you can kind of pick out little pieces of moments, for me anyway, where I was kind of like, you could kind of tell where I was in the mourning process of letting go of my musical career, as far as thinking to myself, this will be, you know, I just kind of always had it in my head as like sort of the escape pod of like, well, I don't love what I'm doing right now, but maybe this next song's going to hit, and maybe,
Right.
oh, I'll get a good placement. I'll get a good this, I'll get a good that, get the lucky break, magic bullet thinking. And turns out 20 years of magic bullet thinking does not get you a magic bullet. So, um, and so you could kind of hear, I don't know, there's pieces of it where you can kind of hear, me like kind of processing through it a little bit, but also, um, I would say some of, to answer more directly, answer your question, is a couple things. One is, to the point that you just made, is I stopped needing validation of whether or not this was good,
Yeah.
because and I well, I should say I've tried to stop needing I don't think I fully stopped, but that wasn't the end game that I would like, oh, I'll write this and oh, you know what? People think I'm cool because this sort of sounds like that, or oh, this is an interesting chord change, or my songwriter friends, they'll get this. I
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
prestidigitation in a song, like wink, like, like so like so I felt that felt freeing, although that was difficult to sort of let go of that. But in letting go of that, I also sort of started to embrace this thing. A friend of mine told me, gosh, probably a couple of years ago. I don't actually know if this is true, but I've always learned, like, never let a fact get in the way of a good story.
Absolutely.
So
Put it out there, Jess. Just put it out there, man.
that's right. So this is 100% true, everyone. Um, but he was saying that the word amateur actually means for the love. And so I always thought amateur meant you don't get paid for what you do. Like professional means you're paid, amateur
Can it
means you're
mean
not
both?
paid. Yeah, right. It turns out it does. So, but that's where I just started like embracing it, of just being like, yeah, I do this for the love. Like, I feel like I was created to make music, but I had to make some, we just happen to be born, Reggie, of the same sickness that I do, like, but we just happen to be born in a time where for a season, that was an option to do full time.
Right.
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 So unless you were the musician in the king's court,
Right.
or like, there was just sort of little moments in time that you could make a full-time. Well, there was a moment in time where a lot more people could do this full-time.
Right.
And now that moment of time is changing drastically to the type of person that can make this full-time as a musician. And
I'm really glad you brought that up. I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. I think especially people kind of behind us coming up don't fully comprehend, is that yes, it was kind of a magic, that they call it the magic hour, when you get, when you're getting photos taken right there at sunset. There was a magic hour, and it didn't last. It wasn't long. I mean, it was like 80 years, right? Where there was actually commerce being done. I don't think people realize the very dramatic change that has happened and we came up at the very tail end of it, right?
Yep.
And so it looked like a viable, even if you don't become a superstar, hey, there's a viable living to be made. Yep. And then we have literally physically seen that vanish.
Yeah.
And it's become something else. I mean, you can still do it. You can still put your music easier than you've ever been able to.
Right.
Right. And you have access to more. It's so ironic because you have access to more people. You've got more tools, stuff like this. You got more pathways to the people, and yet there's less of a living to be made now than there ever has been. It's very strange.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I read a book a while ago, like Rodgers and Hammerstein. It's interesting. I mean, these absolute legends, and it's interesting to hear about the early days, because it was as that window was starting to open up. Oh, wait, you can make a living doing this. That these people were doing, very much day jobs, and they were trying to do this, or they were making no money,
Right.
And then, this door opened, and suddenly they became superstars, and then they opened the door for the next wave, and then, et cetera, et cetera. And then I feel like we're like the, should we turn off the lights and close the door now?
You guys want us to clean up?
Yeah, exactly.
There's like a bunch of rags over here. Should we get those rags.
Yep. I feel like more we're like saying, do you want us to clean up all the crap that you just crapped all over us when you were like, I don't think this is a hit. I don't think this is a hit. You remember that? How many times? I mean, you and I wrote several times together and went in and pitched it, and they were like, ooh, I don't even see this being on the album. And then that turned #1. And we're like,
which one was it?
It was Love's Across.
Love's
Across was one. Every Moment was the other that they were really fighting, saying, no, this isn't.
They fought on that. Dude, I honestly, I don't remember. The only thing I remember was Joy wrote Love's Across with us, and she really, really balked at doing it.
Mm-hmm.
She did Every Moment, but I remember her just going, this just is not my kind of song. And I still don't think we have the cut on that yet. I still, well, I mean, both Russes, Lee and Taft, both did great jobs on it, but I just still think it's a bigger song than what it, kind of ended up being. To this day, I think someone could still cut that song and it would still be a smash because people just resonate with it. It's a big concept. It's a big melody. It's all of that stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, so I still kind of pitch it around. It's got that really horrible thing of it was almost a hit.
I know.
You
I
know what I
know.
mean? So
You just
everybody's
tell
like,
people it's never recorded
well,
because
it was just,
yeah.
but
Right.
if your songs, I don't subscribe to the thing about your songs being like your kids, but if they are, that's one of those ones that was like, man, it did all the right things and it just didn't get into the good school,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Which you just described my life. So
man, I gotta tell you, when
uh,
when George King brought you guys to me, I was on my way out of that business. I didn't want to do it anymore. And he was like, no, you're going to want to do this. Trust me. Particularly, you're going to love this guy. So he really built you up. And I heard Six String Rocketeer and I'm like, damn it. Okay. I will do this last record, but you guys were like you were my swan song of CCM.
yeah.
I kind of, that's why a lot of the stories that you're telling, some of this I really don't remember. I had so many things happening at that time. Also,
Yeah.
getting
Oh
ready
yeah.
to adopt a little girl. All of this stuff was swirling, and all I remember was us just laughing all the time. That's just it.
Yeah.
It was just like a constant running joke. And then, oh, by the way, at the end of it, we've got a record,
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, it was funny. I mean, because I knew Six String Rocketeer had gotten us a deal because I don't think that there were any other songs that we had written before that made it on the album. And I specifically remember when we got that, we had that production deal, which you told me on the call the other day, which I'd never heard, that you paid for everything up front and then got the record the company to actually. I hope they reimbursed you, by the way.
Yeah. It was
And
fine. And it wasn't that much money because, the studio was at my house and I was basically
yeah,
paying Jordan, but
sure.
I got us kind of up and running before, while you guys were working the contract and all of that.
Yeah, that's great.
And it was, but, wait a minute though, you guys, didn't you bring Five and Flying Blind into that record as well? It seems like you did. Maybe you didn't.
Oh, five. We did five.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the reason I was going to say that was because I remember that when we knew, like, okay, this is going to happen, that my wife had left for a weekend to, I can't remember what, maybe go see family or something like that. So I was by myself. And I just remember I just sort of went into that place that every writer dreams of, which is the zone. And I was just there for a whole weekend. And I remember specifically that we lived, this is when we lived in Pasadena, Los Angeles. And we were walking distance from the original Trader Joe's. It's in South Pasadena. And so we lived right around the corner from it. So I walked over and I bought Trader Jose's, the like Corona type beer or whatever. And because I was such a hard
Yeah,
drinking
man.
fella.
Of course.
Yeah.
Rock and roll,
so,
baby.
so I bought those. And then we had this like massive, like the Costco size thing of goldfish. And that's all I ate or drank for 2 days.
Good.
Was I just ate a giant thing of goldfish and I finished off a 6-pack of beer and I basically wrote an album. So I
That's
wrote
amazing.
like Flying Blind, Lost and Found, Hero. I got about halfway through More to Life. I'm trying to think the other ones on the album, but we came in with 3,000 Miles Away too.
I was going to say, I think
that was
I think
another
you
one.
had
Yeah.
3,000 because I believe that was another one that I heard with Six String Rocketeer where I went,
Okay.
freak.
Yeah.
That's good. It really bothered me because I was only able to write a couple of songs on that with you, and I was like, man, I'd like to write more on this thing, but I mean, it was so good, when you came. I mean, we were able to write Tangled Web and then that worship tune.
Yeah. I Live. Yeah.
But which Tangled Web still just holds up just as a track.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's fun.
oh my gosh.
Yep.
And Spider-Man, the movie, those guys missed it.
I know.
It should have been the end
It's
title.
all the should have been. It was funny, like we didn't really get into it too much on the call, but it just reminded me of like, sort of in the post-mortem after the band, we sort of started going through like the list of all of the things that almost happened. We almost went on this big tour. I can't even remember with who. Like, it might have been the Newsboys tour. We almost got on the Spider-Man album. We almost, hit it with that huge, I don't remember who it is anymore, but that huge Christian uh, radio station in Dallas, or there was like all of these, like, oh, if you do this, that'll open up all kinds of doors.
Right.
If you do this, it's like, well, what happens if you don't get any of those?
Yeah.
You lose your deal. Is that what it is? Got it. All right.
It's so true, man. It's like you think you want it, and a great story. A friend of mine was playing golf with a guy who's an actual professional golfer. And he said, man, it must be nice to just be a pro golfer. He goes, okay, I'll tell you what. He said, and they were on the green. They were about to putt. He goes, I tell you what, I'll bet you $300,000 you can't hit that next putt. And he's like, oh yeah, thinking, he goes, no, I'm serious. 300 grand says you can't hit that. And he was like, dude, he goes, that's what it's like to be a professional golfer.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's kind of the same thing with the music business. People talk about, oh my gosh, making music all day. It's just like, yes, making the music is wonderful. Now, at the other end of that, there's two answers, right? You have a hit, and you get to live on all of that, or you don't, and you stay in the fight. And it's really, there's really not anything much in between. I mean, we do live in the in between, but I'll tell you, you have to have Flying Blind go number one for you guys to even get as far as you got, right?
That's right. Yeah, for sure. And I think, I tell my friends, who, even if it's outside of music, but like you professional golf or something like that, I always just tell them like, hey, just be really aware of who you're complaining to.
Yeah.
Because there's I always call it like, it's like complaining that you're sore after getting a massage. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. That must have really hurt to get that knot worked out.
Yeah. Right.
Like there's a trusted circle of people that will understand the pressures and the, whatever. But like, there's just also there's a huge line of people that are just like, gosh, if I could only,
Yeah, right.
but I never experienced that pressure. So,
What, so talk to me now about kind of what your life is. One of the things I'm also very intrigued by you, and I think you and I had kismet with in this kind of way of thinking. You work and come from, because of your dad, kind of the faith business, but you don't attach your music necessarily to it, right?
Yeah.
So like when I heard All the Gold I've Struck, I knew that you were like a pastor at a church, and I'm listening to this record going, well, I don't know that this is a record you'd play at church. Maybe it is, I don't know. So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, how does that, do you play do you play at churches? Would you rather not play at churches? Do you care? Is it anything you even think?
Yeah, good question. I actually, rewinding 20 years, I actually was one of the guys in the band that when the reunion records deal came up, I was actually one of the guys that was like, oh, we're not going to do this.
Yeah.
And, the other guys were like, no, we're absolutely going to do this. And my thing was always, I just didn't feel super comfortable with the faith and arts piece being glued together by commerce. Like that was the part that I was like, I don't know, that feels off to me. And now I see in retrospect that the rub I was feeling was what I was saying before, is that I don't know that this is true anymore. for me.
Yeah.
But I know that this plus this equals hit equals, you know, being able to keep making music, being on the road, having a, you know, making a living. Okay. And so I think that what, you know, with the release of that, or releasing that, mourning that loss, kind of moving on from that piece, it really has freed me up. And I just, I'm really just interested more than ever. I'm just interested in telling the truth in my music. And sometimes it just means like, this is kind of sad, you know, or like, and you don't have to add in the bridge with the key change. It's like, but then Jesus came along, you know, it's like,
The Jesus
and
fixed it bridge.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And then the last chorus is like, but there is hope, you know, and you change
Right.
one or two lyrics and it's like, you know, but I yeah, I strive to tell the truth. And I feel like, you know, the irony, of course, of the Daily Planet album is like we had like Flying Blind went #1. I think that Everything Revolves was top 10. I think I Live was top 10 on like the inspo charts or something like that. But anyway, there were a few songs that got played on the radio, especially Flying Blind. Nobody ever talks to me about that song. The song that they talk to me the most about is Six String Rocketeer, because that was the most true.
Right.
You know, like they're saying, I can feel what you're feeling. I've felt that before, where I don't know that they're feeling that on other songs. And that's what I think I'm just still after is saying, this is how I feel, this is true. And so there really is, I mean, in this type of songwriting, I think that there is an inherent selfishness that comes with it, but it's only, I think it's a negative selfishness when you're not trying to tell the truth. It's selfish if you're just trying to be famous, right?
That's right.
But I think you have to like think, what am I at? What's actually true for me? You put that out there, and it turns out that is a much greater resonator than this has a cool, you know, this reminds me a lot of, you know, a Robin Thicke song or whatever, you know, is being played on the charts. Robin Thicke. Wow. Way to be relevant, Jesse.
Where do you play? Where do you play your do you still do West Coast feed dates? You guys still?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, so we do West Coast Feed. That's my band. That's like big, high energy, full horn section. Like, so that's like the summer shows. We play a ton of like you know, summer concert series, festivals, things like that. It's just the like get up and dance, and it's a super fun thing. My solo stuff is more singer songwriter, so I'll play, you know, smaller venues, even like you know, some house shows, and kind of more like, you know, which is it's a dying breed, but like it's playing to patrons, really. It's playing to people who are there to hear the stories and hear, you know, and actually listen to the lyrics and lean in. You know, it's hard to find those places to play now.
Yeah, but I absolutely get it, and I'm kind of in the same space. Do you do any work in church now, or is that kind of done for you?
I don't, but I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like, I don't personally work in a church anymore. I'm not a pastor anymore. I'm not one of those like, you know, full deconstructionists that's like, I don't even believe in any of this anymore. Like I do. I mean, there's some things that I've certainly grown and evolved in my thinking and my understanding and things like that, but I haven't, you know, I haven't walked away from that. That's still a core piece of who I am. I think the tricky part is, you know, you know, within that context of what do they want? What are they looking for? And if that doesn't feel authentic or true to me, then it's like, it's not going to be a win for anybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm absolutely not opposed to that. And in fact, I have played, you know, a couple of churches and played my stuff there, and it goes over great because I get to tell the story around it and how that ties to life.
We're gonna do. Are you cool to do kind of a part 2? Can you give me 30 more minutes?
Of course.
Yeah, I'm gonna end this one, and we're gonna do a part 2. We will come back with Jesse Butterworth.